You're gonna try it, but you don't like fish.
I'm like DC, I'm afraid of that whole thing.
Every year, millions of pounds of artificial food dyes and hidden additives make their way into what we eat. And that is just scratching the surface. Behind the bright labels and healthy claims are secrets most companies hope you will never find out.
The whole food movement, from companies to farmers to consumers, everybody needs to be involved.
What if we told you that the orange juice you drink might be laced with pesticides, or that your apple pie contains more than just apples? Here are the 15 products you won't ever buy again, knowing how they are made.
Part of the whole Make America Healthy Again shtick, touted by Trump and RFK Jr. on the campaign trail, is that Americans need to have better food to eat, which, true, absolutely.
Number 15. Canned tomatoes. You probably think canned tomatoes are harmless. They are cheap, easy, and everywhere. But there is a part of the process that most people don't hear about, and it might make you look at that. Can a little differently. Canned tomatoes are in a lot of kitchens. They go into sauces, soups, stews, pretty much anything. But here's the part that doesn't get much attention. The lining inside those cans is often made with a chemical called BPA.
And if you think you can avoid this problem by only buying packages that say BPA free on them, hoo boy, you'd better think again.
That stands for bisphenol A. It's used to stop the metal from reacting with the food. It seems useful, but the problem is what BPA can do once it gets into your body. When food sits inside those cans, BPA doesn't just stay put. It can seep into the food, especially when the food is acidic. That's why tomatoes are one of the biggest concerns. They are naturally acidic, so they draw out more of the chemical. And since canned tomatoes sit on shelves for weeks or even months, that gives the BPA plenty of time to mix into the food. Research has linked BPA exposure to different health problems. Some studies point to a possible connection with infertility. Others suggest it might raise the risk of heart disease and diabetes. What's worrying is that BPA is already all over the place. It's not just cans. It is in bottles, plastic containers, and even things like Tupperware. One study from the Centers for Disease Control tested over 2,500 people over the age of 6.
Even more sensitive to endocrine disruptors, little kids.
The infant in utero, it's been shown that many of these chemicals cross the placenta.
BPA showed up in 93% of them. And even when companies say their cans are BPA-free, that is not the end of it. Once people started avoiding BPA, companies switched to something else, BPS, or bisphenol S. But that chemical has health concerns too. It's not exactly a safer choice. It's more like a substitute with similar risks. The good news is you can avoid all this. Fresh tomatoes are easy to find. You can also look for tomatoes packed in glass jars instead. It's a small switch, but it can help you cut down on unwanted chemicals in your food. Number 14. Red candies and jelly beans.
Jelly Belly makes 15 billion jelly beans every year. Here's the question: how do they make such realistic flavors?
There is a hidden world behind your candy's color and shine, and it involves thousands of insects you have probably never heard of. The bold color of red candies doesn't come from strawberries or cherries. It comes from tiny insects called cochineals. These bugs live on cactus plants in South America. Farmers collect them straight from the cactus pads. After being picked, the bugs are dried out and ground up. It takes around 70,000 of them just to make 1 pound of red dye. That's a lot of bugs for a single ingredient, but it's what gives that bright red look to so many candies you see on store shelves. Now, even if your go-to treat isn't red, there is still a good chance it has insects in it. That smooth, glossy finish on things like jelly beans? That comes from shellac. Shellac is made using another bug, this time from Thailand and India, the female lac bug. The process is kind of wild. The bugs leave behind a waxy layer to protect their babies. That layer hardens on tree branches. Workers go out and scrape the branches, collecting both the wax and the bugs stuck in it. After that, they clean it up, remove any pieces of bark or bugs, and melt it down. What's left is a clean glaze that gets brushed onto candy to make it look perfect and shiny. So yeah, that smooth candy shell or bright red color might look like magic, but there is a whole lot of bug work behind it. It's one of those things most people eat all the time without ever really knowing what went into it. Number 13. Toothpaste. It promises clean teeth and a bright smile, but what's really inside that tube could be disrupting your body from the inside out. A lot of toothpastes you see on store shelves include ingredients that most people don't give a second thought to. One of those ingredients is paraben.
A lot of toothpastes now have stannous fluoride in them, like periodontax. But stannous fluoride itself can be dangerous.
It is a chemical that is usually added to stop mold and bacteria from growing in products. That means it helps toothpaste last longer on the shelf. However, parabens can be absorbed by the skin or through your mouth. Once inside the body, they start acting like estrogen, which is a natural hormone. That can confuse your hormone system and throw it out of balance. When that happens, it can mess with fertility, cause problems with reproductive development, and may even raise the risk of some cancers. So a small thing added to keep toothpaste fresh can actually lead to much bigger issues. Now there is also something called triclosan. That is another chemical found in some toothpaste brands. It is there to kill bacteria, but research has shown it can also do more harm than good. Triclosan has been linked to skin irritation and has been found to make people more sensitive to certain foods. That means it can actually help cause allergies you didn't have before. Triclosan is another one that messes with your hormones. But instead of copying a hormone, it can lower how much testosterone or estrogen your body makes. And that matters. A drop in those hormones can lead to fertility problems in both men and women. So, next time you are reaching for toothpaste, it might be worth checking the label first. What's meant to keep you clean could be doing something else entirely. Number 12. Chicken. What if the chicken you are eating isn't quite what you think it is? Not in a horror movie kind of way, but in a slow, silent kind of way that sneaks into your daily meals without much warning. Chicken is usually seen as one of the healthier meats. It is full of B6 and B3 vitamins, which help with brain function, your immune system, and nerves. But even with all that, something shady has been going on in the poultry world, and it's been happening for decades. Back in the 1970s, poultry companies figured out a trick. They started using a method called plumping. Basically, they inject raw chicken with salt water. The idea was to make the meat seem juicier and more flavorful. And it's still happening today. It's legal as long as the packaging mentions it in some vague way. That is where labels with words like enhanced or contains chicken broth come in. What's actually happening is that salt water is being pumped into the meat, making it heavier. That way, companies can charge more per package. In fact, you might be paying more and getting less real chicken. But it is not just about the money. The bigger problem is health. A normal chicken breast without any plumping has around 45 to 70 milligrams of sodium. But a plumped one? That can shoot up to anywhere between 200 and 500 milligrams. That's a big jump, especially when you are only supposed to have about 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. Eating chicken that has been plumped can push you toward a high-salt diet without you even realizing it. Over time, that can raise your blood pressure and increase your chances of getting heart disease. The worst part? You probably can't tell just by looking. Plumped chicken doesn't look strange or different, but if the label says brined, enhanced, or natural broth, it's a clue. That chicken's likely been loaded up with salt water. Number 11. Ice cream. Some things in food labels make you pause, but others leave you wondering how they ever got there in the first place. What if we told you ice cream, beer, frosting, and even some meds might have something in common with antifreeze? It is called propylene glycol. Sounds like something from a chemistry set, and in a way, it is. This ingredient shows up in all kinds of things like paint, laundry detergent, fertilizer, and yes, antifreeze. But before you panic about what is in your dessert, let's break it down. Propylene glycol is a clear, slightly thick liquid that has a faint sweet taste. It doesn't have much smell, and its job is pretty practical. In antifreeze, it keeps things from freezing. In ice cream, it does the same by stopping ice crystals from forming. That's what gives your favorite frozen treat that smooth texture instead of turning it into a block of crunchy ice. Now, the word antifreeze being tied to food sounds bad. But here's the thing. Propylene glycol is only dangerous in large amounts, like really large, the kind you'd never come close to eating unless you were trying to. It would take around 100 times more than you would usually get through your diet to be harmful. Honestly, if you ate that much ice cream, you would be more likely to run into problems with your blood sugar than the ingredient itself. But let's move to something even weirder called castoreum. It's a substance that comes from beavers, specifically from glands near their rear ends. They use it to mark territory, mixed with their urine. Gross? Definitely. But it also smells surprisingly sweet, kind of like vanilla mixed with raspberry. Back in the early 1900s, people started using it as a vanilla substitute, and even though companies say they have moved on from using castoreum, they are not legally required to say if it's still in the product. That means when you see natural flavoring on a label, there is a tiny chance your dessert includes a drop of beaver gland. Number 10. Chewing gum. Have you ever wondered what is actually in your chewing gum? You might think it's just sugar and flavor, but there's something surprising hiding in that stretchy texture. Something that starts on the back of a sheep. Chewing gum needs a gum base, and that is where things get interesting. The base isn't just one thing, it is a mix. It usually includes polymers, plasticizers, resins, and a strange addition called lanolin. Lanolin is a greasy substance that comes from the oil glands in sheep. It is what makes their wool waterproof and soft. This stuff isn't harmful. In fact, it is used in all sorts of products, like lotions and lip balms. But when it comes to gum, lanolin helps keep it soft and chewable. That soft bounce your jaw gets used to while chewing?
It's so soft. I think I might have added too much flavor though.
Lanolin plays a part in that. Still, it does make you think twice. It is not exactly something most people expect to be chewing, and it's not like it's clearly labeled either. Gum packages rarely say exactly what's in the gum base. It could be there or not. There are no rules saying the company has to tell you. So if you are someone who wants to skip animal byproducts, it is best to choose gum that's certified vegan. That's really the only way to know for sure you're not chewing something made with sheep oil. For now, just remember, the thing that gives gum its signature chew might be a tiny drop of something rubbed off a sheep's wool. Most people never notice, but now you will probably think about it the next time you pop in a piece. Number 9. Protein shakes. These days, almost half of Americans drink protein shakes regularly. They are seen as a fast track to stronger muscles, better health, and even a boosted immune system. But behind the glossy packaging and sweet flavors, the source of that protein is kind of odd, especially if you are using whey. Whey is the most common protein used in powders, and believe it or not, it's basically a leftover from cheese making. When milk is heated and curdled using bacteria and a special enzyme called rennet, the curds turn into cheese. What's left behind is a watery liquid, whey. That liquid gets filtered to take out the carbs and fats. Then it's dried using blasts of hot and cold air. What is left is a powder that doesn't smell great and definitely doesn't taste amazing. That is why companies add flavors like chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry to cover it up. So far, not too terrible, right? But here is the thing. Some research says that the hormones in dairy products could be linked to problems like acne, hair loss, and even higher cancer risk. Other studies say the opposite, so it's hard to be sure. But when it comes to how that powder is made, that's where things get concerning. One of the cheapest ways to process whey uses a method called ion exchange filtration. It's effective, but rough. It can strip away some of the nutrients and leave behind chemical traces. That means the cheaper protein powders might have small amounts of heavy metals like lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium. It's not something you would notice right away, but over time, it could do some damage, all from something you thought was just a simple post-workout shake. Number 8. Bacon. You might love the sound of bacon sizzling in the pan. It's familiar, comforting even. But what if that tasty breakfast treat came with a hidden cost you never saw coming? To get that classic look and flavor in things like bacon, salami, sausage, and jerky, the meat has to be preserved. That is where methods like curing, smoking, drying, or salting come in. One key ingredient used during this is sodium nitrite. It helps keep the meat red, stops the fat from going bad too quickly, and keeps harmful bacteria away. On the surface, that sounds pretty helpful, but sodium nitrite doesn't always stay harmless. When it gets exposed to high heat, like when you fry bacon, it can change. It can form something called N-nitroso compounds. These compounds are where the real danger starts. Studies have found that they may mess with your cells and DNA. That kind of damage has been linked to certain cancers. It doesn't happen overnight, and not every strip of bacon is out to get you. But when you eat processed meats often, especially the ones cooked at high heat, the risk adds up over time. Scientists aren't saying you will drop dead from one sandwich, but they are pointing out that the link between those preserved meats and cancer is something to take seriously. Number 7. Energy drink. It is marketed as a shortcut to energy, but you're also getting a crash course in what not to put in your body. Take a regular 500 milliliter can of Monster Energy. Seems harmless, right? But it contains around 55 grams of sugar. That is more than what an adult man is supposed to have in an entire day, and that's just in one drink. The recommended daily max is 36 grams, so you're way over with just a single can. All that sugar doesn't just affect your waistline, it sticks to your teeth, increasing the chance of decay. Over time, it also contributes to weight gain, and carrying extra weight bumps up your risk of some serious health issues. That includes things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even certain cancers. It's not just about a sugar rush, it's what comes after. Now, if you were to boil a can of Monster down, getting rid of all the water, you would be left with a thick, dark goop. It's sticky like tar. That shows just how much sugar is really in there. But the sugar isn't alone. There is a whole mix of other ingredients added for that energy boost. Things like taurine, guarana, ginseng, and L-carnitine. These can be helpful in small amounts, but energy drinks load them in. If you are drinking one every day, your body starts to feel the effects. The acids from these ingredients build up. This can mess with your blood's pH balance, making it more acidic than it should be. To fight this, your body pulls calcium from your bones and breaks down muscle to balance things out. So while you might feel more awake, underneath that boost, your muscles and bones are slowly paying the price. Number 6. Orange juice. So you are at breakfast, maybe thinking you are making the better choice. You skip the soda and grab a bottle of orange juice. After all, it is full of vitamin C, right? Seems like the smart move. But here is the thing. A 300 milliliter bottle of Tropicana has nearly as much sugar as a can of Coke. Not many people realize that. That's a lot of sugar, especially first thing in the morning. And if you are watching your blood sugar or trying to avoid that mid-morning crash, this might be something worth paying attention to. But the surprise doesn't stop with sugar. When you see labels saying 100% orange juice, you would probably think it's just juice from oranges. Simple, real. But it turns out that's not how it works. Real orange juice, like the kind you squeeze at home, doesn't last long on shelves. To make it stay fresh longer, companies take the oxygen out of it. That extends the shelf life, but it also strips away the natural taste. What you are left with is something bland. So, how do they fix that? They add flavor packs. These aren't extra ingredients listed on the label because they're made from the natural oils and essences of oranges, but they're processed. It's how companies bring back that orange taste. Still, it's not quite the same as what you would get from a fresh orange. And there is one more thing. When companies juice oranges, they usually throw the whole fruit in, including the peel. That is a problem because those peels are often covered in pesticides. Some of those pesticides can slip into the juice. One type, called cholinesterase inhibitors, messes with the nervous system. Early research is starting to show it might even have links to dementia later in life. Orange juice can be a tasty way to get some nutrients, but it's important to be aware of what is in your glass. Considering the sugar content, added flavorings, and potential pesticide residues, it might be worth thinking twice before making it a daily habit. Number 5. Diamonds. They are small, expensive, and considered beautiful, but the process behind diamonds isn't nearly as polished. Getting diamonds out of the ground causes real damage. Mining companies dig deep into the soil, tearing apart land that used to be home to animals and plants. This doesn't just change the land's shape, it also messes with the water systems and ruins natural habitats. Some areas never fully recover. The soil gets stripped away, and nothing grows back for years. Now, here is something even more serious. A huge number of diamonds come from areas where violence is part of the trade. In certain places, rebel groups control the mines. They use the money from diamonds to fund their fights. Sometimes that includes forcing kids to work or being involved in human trafficking. And the people buying the diamonds might not even know they're connected to any of that. The people working in these mines often deal with unsafe conditions. In parts of Africa, workers are paid very little, and they still have to risk their health every day. The air they breathe in the mines is full of dust. That dust gets into their lungs. Over time, it leads to a disease called silicosis. It is painful, and it shortens people's lives. Some only live another 7 to 21 years after they are diagnosed. There is also the emotional side. A lot of miners leave home for long stretches to find work. Families get pulled apart. The money they make often isn't enough to truly support their loved ones, and people are left struggling both physically and mentally. The good news is, there are other choices now. Lab-grown diamonds are one of them. They're made in controlled environments, and there's no damage to land or harm to people in the process. So, while diamonds may shine, it's worth asking what's been lost to make them sparkle. Number 4. Perfume. If you thought perfume was all about flowers and spices, think again. Some of the most luxurious scents are made with something a little more disturbing. This ingredient, known as ambergris, is the hidden treasure of the perfume world, and it's as bizarre as it sounds. In the world of perfumery, it's often called the gold standard. It's rare, expensive, and known for giving a fragrance a soft, warm finish. When added, it can make a scent feel deeper and more lasting. You will usually only find it in high-end luxury perfumes because of how costly it is to source. Now, ambergris isn't made in a lab or picked from a flower. It comes from sperm whales, more specifically, from their digestive system. It is believed to be made when the whale's body reacts to hard, indigestible objects, kind of like a protective coating.
All right, have you heard of this very expensive ingredient found in high-end perfumes that comes from whales?
After a while, the whale expels it, and it ends up either floating on the water or washing up on beaches. While traditional methods of collecting ambergris involve finding it after it has been naturally released, its use still causes concern. Because of how valuable it is, there has been pressure to find more of it. That can lead to whales being hunted or harmed, even though the ingredient doesn't need to be taken directly from the animal. In some places, the trade of ambergris has led to illegal activity and accidental whale deaths. That is why a number of countries have banned it, trying to lower demand and keep whales protected. To work around the ethical issues, perfume makers now use lab-made ingredients like ambroxan. It's designed to smell and perform like real ambergris, but without hurting any animals. So the next time you are drawn in by a warm, lasting scent, you might just wonder what secrets are hiding behind it. Number 3. Skincare products. Celebrities are putting foreskin on their faces, and they are calling it skincare. It sounds like a punchline, but it's very real. And it's the latest high-end beauty trend sweeping Hollywood. Here is how it works. It starts with skin cells taken from circumcised newborn babies. These cells have a protein receptor called epidermal growth factor, or EGF. When this is applied on your skin, it tells your body to start making more collagen and elastin. Those two proteins are what keep your skin tight and smooth. Basically, the treatment tricks your face into looking younger. What is even more mind-blowing is that one tiny bit of discarded foreskin can produce over 1 million applications. So, a bunch of A-listers are out here getting fancy facials made from something most people never think twice about. The creams and injections they use are packed with this epidermal growth factor, and for some, it's become a regular part of their skincare routine. But here's where things get messy. In some cases, the EGF isn't just from leftover cells. It's taken fresh from babies in South Korea who have just been circumcised. That's where the controversy kicks in. Some people argue it's fine because the foreskin would have been thrown away anyway. Others say it crosses a serious moral line. It makes money off a procedure that not everyone agrees with, and the profit is huge. These treatments are expensive, way out of reach for most people. Now, whether you find it fascinating or flat out weird, this trend definitely isn't fading anytime soon. Number 2. Beer. For a lot of people, quitting alcohol isn't easy. It is tied to habit, social life, and routine. But there's one strange fact that might help push some folks to rethink what's really in their drink. Everyone knows beer is made with stuff like barley, hops, yeast, and water. That is the basic recipe. But in some cases, there is something else hiding in the mix. Something way less expected. It comes from a fish. More specifically, a fish's swim bladder. That is the part that helps fish float and sink in water. Once it's dried, it's used to make something called isinglass. Isinglass looks like gelatin and has been part of brewing since the 1800s. It's not added for flavor. It's used later in the process, right before the beer gets bottled. It helps clear things up, literally. It binds with yeast and protein leftovers floating around and makes them clump together. Then they drop to the bottom. What's left is a clearer, cleaner-looking beer. Even though it's been around for a long time, brewing has changed. Many companies now use vegan-friendly stuff like Irish moss, gelatin, or silica gel. These do the same job without using anything from animals. But some places, especially in the United Kingdom, have stuck with the old way. They still use isinglass in their brewing because it's what they have always done. And it's not just in the United Kingdom. Small breweries in different countries are also using it, sticking to traditional methods. So unless you are checking every label closely, you might be drinking more than you bargained for. Number 1. McDonald's apple pie. You know that warm, sweet smell that hits you when you open a McDonald's apple pie? Crispy on the outside, soft in the middle. It is one of those things that feels like a reward after a salty meal. But behind that golden crust, there is something most people have no idea about. Let's just say, what's baked into that flaky dough might make you stop mid-bite. McDonald's adds something called L-cysteine to the pie crust. It's not there for taste. It helps soften the dough, making it easier to mix, and it also helps the pie stay fresh longer. So, what's the catch? L-cysteine isn't just whipped up in a lab. Making it synthetically costs more. So about 80% of the time, it's made from duck feathers. That is right, feathers. Most of it comes from China, where they have found ways to pull amino acids from parts of animals that people usually throw away. But that is not even the worst part. A little over a decade ago, L-cysteine used to come from a source that makes duck feathers seem pretty tame. Until around 2010, a lot of it was actually made using human hair. Hair clippings from salons and barbershops were swept off the floor, bagged up, and processed into this amino acid. It sounds wild, but it really happened. Once made, the product would get shipped around the globe and added to food items. And no, it's not just McDonald's pies. You will also find L-cysteine in frozen pizza crusts, bagels, and even some store-bought breads. So next time you are munching on something soft and fluffy, think about what went into making it feel that way. It might not just be flour and water. Sometimes it is what you don't see or expect that ends up in the mix. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.